This is Hampley III from Spiritual Combatants, where we're training soldiers for Christ. Today, I want to come to you with a question one of the dear brothers had posed to me, or at least mentioned, about being married but lonely. So I took a couple days just to kind of go over it and kind of think about some things, and even in my own life, to be able to help you in just answering this question about being married but also feeling alone. And sometimes we can do that. So if I can, I'm gonna try to get everything that I have into one video, but if not, then I'll go into a second video. So I have it timed right now, so I'll try to keep it to maybe about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll see where we're at if we'll have a second video. But my desire is just to have one video that just deals with married but lonely. So let's get into it. Now, many married couples want to have these connection points, and so the connection points that they want to have is through compassion, which is like, you know, intimacy, love. Then you have communion, which is maybe their time together, just the, you know, that we have me time, and then we also have we time, so it's like that we time together. And then you also have communication, and communication is also important. And so in the relationship, if someone feels they're not receiving these connection points in one of these areas, depending on where they at, where they may be, or what they desire out of the relationship, then there may be some type of loneliness that sets in. And when you think about marriage, you're bringing in two people from two totally different, you know, backgrounds, different locations. Like my wife and I'm from Compton, California. She's from North Carolina. You know, you're talking about East-West, East Coast, West Coast, you know, raised totally different. And so you're bringing two totally different people together. We know that God's brought us together, but then we have to be able to be in sync and to be able to have these same connection points. But the one thing that I learned about loneliness is that loneliness, and I'm just going to keep it 100. Throughout this video, I'm not going to sugarcoat, but it's for all of our benefit, even mine. And so one thing that loneliness shows, which is a good thing, it shows that our relationship with the Lord is not where it needs to be. And the reason why I say it's good is because you have a chance to identify it. So where loneliness sets in is giving you a cue that your relationship with the Lord is not where it needs to be. Because in those same areas that I talked about, the connection points that you need, or you're looking for, or you may be looking for in your relationship, the Lord, you need to have those same type of connection points with the Lord. Because what happens is, in Psalms 118:8, you know, we, instead of us putting our trust in the Lord, we're putting our confidence in man. And it's more so than what we put in for the Lord. And so it's a telltale sign for us that our relationship with the Lord may not be where it is when loneliness begins to set in and it begins to affect us and how we view our relationship or our lives as a whole. So I'm going to get into all those things that I just said, but let's continue to go on the relationship part as far as husband and wife. And so what happens in the relationship when there may be a dip or there's a lack of these connection points in those three areas is often because there's some type of external issues going on with the other person, or there can be some type of internal issue that's going on within the other person. And so for whatever reason, they may not be able to respond to you the way that you may want. Some people may not even know. I know, you know, because like I said, with my wife, you know, East Coast, West Coast, you know, she just doesn't, she's not a mind reader. And sometimes we expect, and I've been there too, I just expect, because my wife has been around me so long, we've been married for 21 years, that there's some things you just know about me. I assume that you should know this about me. I assume that you should know that. But we shouldn't assume anything. Assumptions lead to trouble. So it's important for me to be able to communicate those things to her and tell her, hey, you know, this is where I'm at, or this is how I'm feeling, or maybe these are the things that I need, but in order to do that, I can't do it while I'm mad, upset, and angry. Because a lot of times we get so upset because our spouse is not giving us what we want, then we start coming at them with an angry word. We're argumentative. We begin to talk bad about them or say things that will hurt or dig into them, and then they turn around and may retaliate. So make sure when you go in to communicate as far as how you feel, that you're doing so in a way that is non-combative and won't cause the other person to rise up in their flesh and kind of come at you like that. So you want to make sure that you communicate with them, and building what I call lighthouses, and then there's windows. And so in lighthouses, you want to build just like a lighthouse. You can see it from a long distance. You want to build certain things within your relationship that you know that this is a solid. So like when my wife and I, when we're talking about those connection points, one of the things is she likes to talk, she wants to talk. And, sometimes we do that just after work. And so in the early years of marriage, as soon as I walk in the door, it'd be like, hey, let's talk right now. And I was like, okay, I want to talk as well, but can you give me a minute just to kind of decompress, kind of get the day off, take a shower, do something, give me about 20 minutes, and then we can talk. And so, we kind of set it up. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I would like to talk to you. I do want to have that connection point. But then I was like, okay, look, I just need a minute to kind of clear my head a little bit, kind of transition well. Because some days I've had some really hard days. It's really hard for me to concentrate, when I'm thinking about what's going on, just trying to let me get this decompression from the day, and then I'm right here with you. But this is just going on, just an opportunity just for us to have a conversation. We also have certain times for date nights and days that we go out. And those are like the lighthouses. Those are like the standard days that we always have. But then I also have what's called the windows. And there'll be times, I call it windows because with the Lord, there'll be this day where it's like He showed me a window open and He said, Hamp, go talk to your wife right now. And then another day, the window open and said, Hamp, go ask your wife to if she wants to go out to eat. And it's just a random Tuesday or Wednesday, but it's not so much as the lighthouse, or I'm trying to do things in a certain manner every Wednesday, or Taco Tuesday, or what have you, Fish Fry Friday. I'm not trying to do something every week, but sometimes God may know that she has a need for a connection. Or there's sometimes when I need a connection. I'm like, Tanya, what are you doing today? Can we go out to lunch? It's just Tuesday. If you're not busy, then maybe we can just go out and just kind of talk about some things, see how you're doing. And so those things really help to build that connection point. But again, it's still all based on my loneliness, or me being lonely or alone can't be based on whether or not I'm in connection or communion with her, because it's going to be based on my relationship with God. So I have to be very, very, very mindful with that, because what you're doing here is, in your relationship, is like building like radio frequencies, and you want to get on the same frequency. And so I'm from LA. If you're in LA and you're big on hip hop and things, you probably listen to 1580 K-Day. And so it's an AM station. And so you kind of, AM station, you got to kind of turn it just the right way so that you can hear it really clear. And so it's the same way. I have a certain frequency. My wife has a certain frequency, and then we bring those together to get on the same page. And sometimes that takes some time to be able to get there. So when you're beginning to speak with your spouse, or to communicate with them about maybe some of your desires or some things that you would like to establish with the relationship, start small. Don't just kind of go in there, 0 to 100, or if they say, hey, yeah, we can go out, or hey, yeah, we can spend some time together, then all of a sudden you want to spend the next 12 hours with them. Don't overwhelm them and then be upset because they back away, because it's almost like like if you're in a herd with some deer or something. Not herd, but you know what I'm talking about. If there's a grouping of deer, I'm not sure what the right word is for it, but you don't want to spook them all so they all run off. You just want to be able to, okay, I'll celebrate the small victory. And so if we can just talk just for a few minutes after work, man, I would love to do that, just to be able to spend that time. Or pillow talk. My wife and I used to have pillow talk on some days. And so before we go to bed, we'll just sit and talk. But pillow talk doesn't happen all the time nowadays. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I always play things by ear, because I want to be sensitive to the Spirit and watching her, so that I know when the window is open. Okay, it's time for me to talk. Or it's time when this past weekend, when I noticed that she did need a little bit more conversation. Or I noticed, hey, let's go out to eat today. And it was just a casual, regular day. And she's like, I had a really hard day. And then there was some times when I'm having a hard day. I'm like, hey, I call up, hey, do you want to go out to lunch or something? So we want to make sure that we're celebrating small victories, but communicating to establish those lighthouses, but being sensitive to the Spirit for when God opens windows of opportunity. So that's also important. And so when you're dealing with loneliness, and when you're facing loneliness, a lot of that is, I don't know the right word for it, so I guess I'm just going to say it's about me. It's more of a selfish need or desire, because you're thinking about what you're not getting out of the relationship. But like I said earlier, it could also be the situations where they're not getting something in their relationship or whatever's going on with them externally or internally. And so as we are married, then I'm also to serve my wife, and I'm also to be able to lead her and to love her and to know what's going on with her and try to even find out. I don't know everything, but then you've been around a person long enough, oftentimes you can see what's going on with them, like, hey, something's not right. So let me kind of check on that a little bit. So I want to make sure that I'm continuing to serve her. I'm loving her as Christ loved the church as well. So I'm making sure that I'm looking after her needs as I'm thinking about my own as well. Because oftentimes when you're able to take care of another person, then they automatically turn back and take care of you. But that's what it's all about, for us to do this together, because you are walking together with your wife on a journey to be able to accomplish the things that God has called you to accomplish. Two people becoming one to continue to glorify God. And that's what we really want to be focused on. So there may be some seasons where you're low and they're high. There may be some seasons where they're high and you're low. And so it just continues to balance out. And oftentimes it happens with my wife and I. We balance each other out all the time to be able to support one another and to love one another as we're continuing to go forward. So the things that you do in the meantime in the relationship, and I'm going to talk about 4 real quick. And then I think I may just split the video because I'm at about 11 minutes. And so the first thing you got to do is pray. And I talk a little bit about this in a video called Overcoming Depression, but I kind of rehash them a little bit. So the first one is prayer. Continue to talk to God as far as dealing with that loneliness that you have within you. And I'll address the loneliness as far as with the communion with God piece, but also talking to him about your cares, your concerns, pouring everything out before him. The second thing that you also want to have is you want to be able to communicate. And I talked about that a little bit more, just talking with your spouse, asking God when may be a good opportunity for you to be able to speak to them to where they may receive what's being said, but you want to cover the situation in prayer. Don't just want to run out, and oftentimes we all do. We want to solve problems. We want to fix them as soon as possible. But sometimes we need to be able to pray so that God can establish the atmosphere, change and really work on our hearts, maybe work on their hearts, so that when the right time comes, and it may not come when you want it, but it'll always be on time because God's always on time. So just wait for his leading to be able to move you to the place to when you can communicate, and then communicate with the words that he wants you to use, not the ones you want to say. You want to say how frustrated you are, mad, and this and that and other. No, you want to make sure your words are seasoned with salt and that they're always going to build up the other person, not to tear them down, because the goal is two becoming one to glorify God. So you want to make sure that you're communicating. So thirdly, you also want to have or establish healthy connections with friends. Healthy connections with friends. You want to have people around you that will uplift you, keep you focused on the main thing, won't be telling you to do things that'll lead you into temptation and sin. And so that's really important. And then, and the fourth thing, and lastly, you want to continue to just kind of chisel away at your relationship just to make sure that you're still kind of moving toward coming one, moving toward those connection points, moving toward having things that you do together, because you need me time, but I know it's important that you also have we time. And so you want to make sure that the two of you can come together. And sometimes there's a sacrifice. There's some compromises that normally go on in what you're doing in order for the two of you to be one. So I wanted to just kind of touch on this real quick. I'm going to cut off the video and then I'll go back into the second half, which is going to be you never have to be lonely again. And this is where I'm going to address the relationship with God. So I pray that the Lord will bless you. Look back over the information that we have that I just given on this video, and then join me on the next one on the fact that you never have to be lonely again. So may the Lord bless you abundantly. God bless.